respected Sheikh Abdul Rahman Alexander, Sheikh Yasin, all the members of the Huffaz who are here in the masjid, the entire Jamat in the masjid, and all those who are connected to us via social media. I greet you with our most beautiful greeting in Islam, the greeting of peace and blessings. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. Indeed, it has been a great honor and a privilege over many years to be able to deliver this talk, which generally has been described as the year-end review. This year, however, having gone through some of the major points in the talk, I must confess that I'm not sure whether we are living in a different world completely. Secondly, I just want to give you a bit of a heads up. We are covering quite a number of major issues of the world, and therefore the talk may be about 5 minutes longer than normal. Let me commence, inshallah, with what happened in February last year, just to refresh our memories. The world witnessed a major earthquake in Turkey and Syria. Entire cities were destroyed. In Turkey alone, 56,000 people died. In Syria, 10,000 people. As we are assembled in this masjid, thousands of people are still homeless, living in tents. 2023 also reminded us about the major threat to our very existence on this dunya, and that is the issue of climate change. And we witnessed last year a number of countries experiencing very, very warm temperatures in many parts of the world, above 55 and close on to 60 degrees. And then in countries like Libya, Bangladesh, parts of India and Pakistan, we witnessed devastating floods which left thousands of people homeless. Among the very few good news items I've got for the year 2023 is the restoration that took place in 2023 of diplomatic relations between the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and the Islamic Republic of Iran. Up in the north, in Europe, once again, the Muslim Ummah was provoked when people wanted to burn copies of the Holy Quran. Many people in many parts of the world were incensed and absolutely upset about this and took to the streets. But one member of the ulama gave the best response, which I would like to mention today. He said, you can burn every Quran in every country, in every city, in every home, but you'll never be able to take the Quran out of the hearts of the Muslims. Then again, in Europe, the country called Netherlands had a general election, and a person who is fanatically opposed to Islam by the name of Geert Wilders led the party that won the most votes. I'm saying this because besides being vehemently against the beautiful deen of Islam, he promised that if he comes into power, he will ensure that every class of every school in the Netherlands, an Auzubika, will have a cartoon of the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. 2023 also saw the Cricket World Cup, and some of you may be thinking, what has cricket got to do with the Jummah? Well, there's an important message. As we went through the elimination rounds, there was one stage when Australia was supposed to play Afghanistan. The Australians were protesting because they felt that the human rights record of Afghanistan is appalling. And as I've mentioned before, and I say it again, the human rights record of Afghanistan is appalling, especially when it concerns women's rights and the issue of education for women. So we put that one side. But the question which I have to ask today is, who is Australia to dictate to the world on the question of human rights when in 2023 they had a referendum in their country? And the issue of the referendum was, shall we give more, not full, but more rights to the indigenous people of Australia, known as Aborigines? The result of that referendum overwhelmingly was the people of Australia voted no, we shall not give them more rights. Who is Australia to dictate to the world on the question of human rights? Back home, we salute the amazing team led by Dr. Hajie A Sataar Parker for two very commendable initiatives they took in 2023. The one was to raise money for medical facilities. I attended the handover ceremony, and I'm very happy to report that they raised more than 2.5 million rand for this purpose. Then I think most of us are aware that they had the cycle rally for Gaza, 75 kilometers, 75 cyclists, and they wanted to raise 750,000 rand. And alhamdulillah, they raised more than 2.5 million rand. Similarly, Dr. Imtiaz Sulaiman was voted the African of the Year, together with all our other Islamic relief organizations are in the forefront. 2023 was also the year when we sadly bid farewell to one of the most principled scholars and political leaders in our country, the late Imam Ahmad Qasim. May Almighty Allah grant him a very high place in the Jannah. Imam Ahmad Qasim, for those who knew him, was a man who lived by his principles right up till the end. And a delegation of this masjid went to visit him a few months before he passed away. And we could see that this is a man who lived the principles that he stood for. 2023 also taught us something that we knew for 55 years. 55 years since 1969, we knew that the late Ash-Shaheed Imam Abdullah Haroon did not die by falling from a flight of steps. And the inquest in 2023 conclusively proved that he was murdered by the apartheid police. May Almighty Allah grant the late Imam Abdullah Haroon the highest rank in the Jannah, inshallah. And may the legacy that he has left behind, the legacy of progressive Islam, reaching out especially to the poorest of the poor. Those days in 1960s, the people of Langa, Bonteheuwel, Manenberg, Nyanga will bear testimony to that. 2023 was also the year in which we saw, very sadly, the elected Prime Minister of Pakistan, a sports icon and a political leader that has been revered all over the world, deposed from power. Imran Khan wanted to turn Pakistan back to what the name Pakistan means, and I've mentioned this before. The name Pak means pure, and Stan means a place of abode, a place to live. And he was passionate about introducing what is called the Charter of Medina. The Charter of Medina is among the first constitutions in the history of humankind, drafted and authored by none other than your and my beloved Nabi Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Very briefly, what is the Charter of Medina? To guarantee the rights of Muslims, Christians, Jews living in Medina, freedom to practice their religion and live happily side by side with their fellow human beings. A very progressive charter. If you do have the time, and if there's one message which I can leave with you to take home, Google the Charter of Medina. Jamat, that takes me to the end of the first part of my talk today. The second part of my talk makes me feel very ashamed to be a member of humanity. And I will explain why. In the past, recent times, we've had massacres taking place in this world. In 1982, we had the Sabra and Shatila massacre, engineered by the Zionists, where thousands of Palestinians were killed. In 1994, on the African continent, in a country called Rwanda, in full knowledge of all the Western political leaders, Bill Clinton and all of them. 800,000 Rwandans were murdered. 800,000, that's close on to 1 million. Everybody kept quiet. There's a movie on this incident as well. The question that we ask is, did they keep quiet? Because this happened on the African continent with black people. And a year later, in 1995, we had the massacre in Bosnia, where the Serbs killed 8,000 Muslim men, women, and children. But today, Jamat, as I stand in front of you, we have the unfolding tragedy of Gaza, which is not a massacre, it's not even a genocide, but it's something gone beyond the genocide. But there's a major difference between Rwanda, Bosnia, Sabra, and Shatila, and what is happening in Gaza at the moment. What is that difference? The difference is that you and I are witness to what's happening in Gaza every minute of every day. The pictures are coming to you on your screens at home, in your lounge, your bedroom, and in the palm of your hands. And one day, we will be held accountable to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We know the statistics. More than 25,000 people have been killed, among them 10,000 children. It's estimated that 15,000 people lie dead under the rubble in Gaza. 50,000 people have been injured, some of them very seriously. And just think about it, 2 million people have been completely displaced from their homes. They don't know what is a home anymore. The situation in Gaza today is homeless, hopeless, and helpless. We know that Gaza has been flattened to smithereens. We know that they've bombed the schools, hospitals, mosques, and also churches. Never forget that. What some people don't know is that they've even bulldozed graveyards and crushed the bones of the dead bodies. 75 years of oppression and resistance. And it's important to realize, Jamat and viewers, that the issue is not only about Hamas. We admire Hamas, we admire the tenacity, we admire the fact that they have taken on the fourth mightiest power on earth, and inshallah, they will emerge victorious. But the issue is not only about Hamas. They want to flatten the entire area of Palestine and take it for themselves. Netanyahu is the architect of starvation, murder, death, destruction, and displacement. But let's just go back a few years. When the United States of America went into Iraq under the pretext of looking for weapons of mass destruction, which they did not find, and killed millions of people in the process. Today, what is America doing? They are taking weapons of mass destruction into Gaza. It's not only land, Jamat, that they have occupied. The question of occupation is such a question that it actually makes you wonder whether we are really human beings or not. Water, which is the most basic substance for any human being to survive on. You can live without food, you can't live without water. They've even occupied water. We've heard this in the Jummah khutbah 2 weeks ago. The people of Gaza are not allowed to put a borehole into their grounds to look for water. They can't catch water from the rain. This is the extent to which they have occupied the people of Gaza. But today, as I stand in front of you, I want you to please join me as we pay tribute to a number of people. First of all, the medical profession in Gaza. Staying there, the doctors, the nurses, the ambulance drivers, they have stayed there and they have decided under the most dangerous conditions still to do whatever they can for the people of Gaza. 374 medical people have passed away under the hands of the Zionists. The second group of people that we need to tribute today are the journalists, for they are bringing the truth in front of your eyes, not your BBCs and your CNNs. In the process, 70 journalists have died. And please join me in making a special dua. All the medical people who have died, all the journalists who have died, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant them a very high abode in the Jannah, inshallah. As one poet has said very beautifully, the road to heaven is lined with the children of Gaza. And today, the third point that we want to tribute is a phenomenon. It's not a person, it's a phenomenon. What is that phenomenon? That is the phenomenon that sometimes we have a very negative view, and that is the phenomenon of social media. For were it not for social media, we would never have known what is really going on in Gaza. Were it not for social media, millions of people all over the world, including in front of the White House in America, would not have taken to the streets. Hundreds and thousands of people wouldn't have marched in our country, including one Saturday here in Cape Town, which was such a beautiful day when different people from different walks of life came together. I know, Jamat, that we've got corruption in our country. I know that we've got crime in our country. I know that we've got load shedding back in our country. And I know that many things are wrong in our country. But on the question of Gaza and the genocide, we have to applaud our government for being the first government in the world that has taken the Zionist state of Israel to the International Court of Justice. That oral hearing takes place this coming Thursday and Friday. We also need to particularly single out our Minister of Foreign Relations, a staunch Muslim for whom the question of Gaza is very close to her. We have met her and we know exactly how she feels about Gaza. I'm talking about our Minister of International Relations, Naledi Pandor. We need to tribute this lady. We need to applaud her. It was her initiative that the case today is at the International Court of Justice. She is staunch and unwavering, and I can assure you that she is under so much pressure from people of political and economic power to climb down on a position, but she refuses to do that. But to be balanced in my talk today, I also need to mention that the Israel embassy hasn't been closed yet. And to be equally balanced in my talk, just yesterday at Newlands Cricket Ground, we saw in the stadium a lot of people with blue sending out a message of the elections coming this year. A lot of people wearing blue. When one single person outside the stadium had a Palestinian flag, 5 policemen had to come and take him away. Jamat, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, Egypt, the United Arab Emirates, Abu Dhabi and Dubai, Bahrain, Kuwait, Oman and Muscat. Collectively, these are the mightiest financial powerhouses in the world. They could do nothing for the people of Gaza. It took one of the poorest nations in the world by the name of Yemen to send shudders through the economic corridors of the world, to the point where even one of the biggest oil companies in the world, BP, British Petroleum, is not sending its oil tankers through the Red Sea anymore. To these countries, we say, history will record. Egypt, you had the Nile River overflowing with water, yet the people of Gaza died of thirst. Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates, you have millions of barrels of oil, yet Gaza didn't have fuel sometimes, not even for an ambulance to go to the hospital. All the surrounding Arab nations have an army of more than 4 million soldiers, Yet you could not stop the genocide in Gaza. Pakistan, you are named as a Muslim country, yet you stood by as the genocide unfolded in front of you. History will record that Saudi Arabia has billions and billions of dollars for desert raves, but could not help supply a single loaf of bread and water for the people of Gaza. Shame on you, shame on you. But there's good news, Jamat. The blood of the 25,000 people that has been shed has brought about a situation that has broken the iron curtain of Western media. They don't have a stranglehold anymore. They have also exposed the myth of Western civilization, which has got nothing to do with democracy whatsoever. But they are ruthless killers and murderers, and they are only on this world to entrench capitalism and colonialism. But again, once a poet has said beautifully, once you witness war, you yearn for peace. And what is the way forward? Many of you have asked me this question over the last couple of weeks. First and foremost, as the Quran states very clearly, when you stand for what is right, when you stand for justice, many times you stand alone, but you must never give in. The question that is part of the talk today, are we heading for a clash? Most certainly, we are heading for a clash. And there's going to be a clash of values in this world. And the worst example which I can share with you is the blatant hypocrisy of the Western world on the question of Ukraine, which was invaded, and it was invaded. Yet Gaza was invaded, and those same Western powers are completely quiet about it. I'm convinced, Jamat, I am absolutely convinced that those who control the world, not those who rule the world, your Bidens and your Bush, your Blair, your Sunaks, these are merely the puppets. There are people sitting in the dark rooms, and they control the lives of billions of people all over the world. They have realized that the order of Allah is going to prevail. They have realized that Islam, which is not a religion, it's a way of life. Islam is the only alternative to the mess that the world is in today. And I'll give you my reasons for that. 2023 was the year in which, for the first time, the Muslim population of the world went beyond the 2 billion mark. That's billion with a B. It's also predicted that in 2050, the population of Muslims in this world will be 3 billion. And in 2075, I'm not going to be around. A lot of us are not going to be around, but a lot of the young people are going to be grown-up people, elderly people, and they will witness the fact that Islam will be the dominant spiritual force on this dunya. They've realized this. They've realized this. And they are going to do everything and anything in their power to demonize the religion, to make it a religion of terrorists, a religion of people who are backward, and they control the media to do that. They also have been doing something in the last 5 to 10 years, which I would like to make you aware of. They take celebrities, well-known people, famous people. They get these people to dilute the religion. They carry names sounding like Muslims, name and surname. If I'm being judgmental, may Allah forgive me today. And these people dilute the faith to such an extent that those people who follow the celebrities, they become diluted in the process. You know, sometimes a beer Christmas time is fine. That same beer leads to vodka, and that same vodka leads to a person who becomes an alcoholic. Be very careful about that. Be very careful when you follow your celebrities when it comes to your religion. There's three things I want to leave you with, Jamat, before we end. The first is to empower yourselves with the values of your deen, not the dogma. I repeat, empower yourselves with the values of your deen. Go back to the Charter of Medina and see how beautifully our beloved Nabi Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam wanted human beings to live together in peace and harmony. That's the first thing. The second thing, on the question of Gaza, boycott. Boycott. But be very careful about the boycott in terms of the fact that it has the potential, as we are a united ummah on this issue, alhamdulillah, we are a united ummah, that there is a possibility that among people, because you've got a difference of opinion on the boycott, that you may create unnecessary disunity. So boycott, first of all, make your niyyah that you're going to boycott. Because when you meet your Creator one day, you can tell Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that I could not go to Gaza to fight as much as I wanted to. But I made the niyyah that I was going to hurt them economically, which is the most potent power that you have against the Zionist economic power. So boycott, but be careful that in the process we don't divide each other. If you want to boycott McDonald's, you do that. If you want to boycott KFC, you do that. If you want to go for Umrah, make dua for the person that's going for Umrah. The person that does not want to go for Umrah, alhamdulillah. Inshallah, as Sheikh Abdul Rahman has mentioned, we cannot boycott the Hajj and the Umrah, we can only defer it. So be careful about the process of the boycott. And we've done great work. The Al-Quds Foundation has brought us all together on the question of Palestine. Let us not look for small issues, and remember the agents of the Zionists act within the community to look for a small issue to divide us. So let us not be divided. And finally, these shoulders that we have carry the greatest responsibility in terms of projecting the beauty of the religion of Islam. And I want to end off by giving you a true story which deals with one of the leading members of the ulama in our country, internationally acclaimed. He's been to this masjid on a number of occasions. A few years ago in the month of Ramadan, he spent, I think, more than a week. Man who's got a great capacity, especially over the Arabic language, and I'm talking about Maulana Sulaiman Mullah. Maulana Sulaiman Mullah, and this is a true story, was on a lecture tour of India. At the end of the tour, he wanted to visit some family members in a city called Surat, which is just north of Bombay. So he goes to visit the family, and at the end of the day, the plan was to take a train from Surat back to Bombay, 4.5 hours. So his family member, let's call him his cousin, says, Maulana, don't travel alone, I'll come with you. I'll come with you to Bombay, I'll see you off at the airport, you then take the flight back to Joburg, and I'll go back to Surat. That was the plan, long story short. So they get into the train, and this is very important. The seating arrangement was Maulana Sulaiman Mullah, next to him, his family member, let's call him the cousin, and the third person was a complete stranger. So Maulana does what he always does when he's away from home. The first call he makes was to his beloved mother. So Maulana has got a very easy, jovial, come along, light-hearted relationship with his beloved mother. And this is the way the conversation went. I'm giving it very quickly. He says, Assalamu alaikum, my beloved mother, the most beautiful mom in the world. How are you? How's things? Can I do anything for you? Any aches and pains? Mom, I love you so much. I'll even take a supersonic jet and come back and rub your feet, etc., etc., etc. That conversation lasted 5 minutes. He puts the phone down. Next call he makes to his wife. Assalamu alaikum, my darling. How are you? How are the children? Did they finish the homework? Did they shower? Did you do the shopping? Remember, Suleiman loves you. I'll be back tomorrow. I'm so much looking forward to seeing my beloved wife, etc., etc. That conversation ended, 3 minutes. The train moves out, and Maulana then takes the blanket, he puts the blanket over him, and he goes to sleep. 4.5 hours later, the train pulls into Bombay, railway station. Everybody gets up, takes their bags down, ready to disembark. The stranger comes to Maulana. The stranger. He says, "Excuse me, sir. First of all, I want to apologize to you. I eavesdropped on your conversation, the beautiful conversation you had with your mother and your wife. My initial thoughts were, here is a man with white on, long beard. He doesn't talk to his wife as darling, but you were so different and you caught my attention. Secondly, I want to tell you that I cannot sleep in a moving object, a plane or a train or a car. So I Googled, and in the space of 4.5 hours, I listened to 6 of your lectures on YouTube. And I found each and every lecture so riveting, so informative, that I've got a totally different view of what Islam is all about." So they embraced each other. They shared cards. Maulana gave his card, he gave his card, and they parted ways. And as Maulana and his cousin was walking towards the airport, the check-in counter, Maulana said, "How does that man know that I am Suleiman Mullah and I'm on YouTube?" He says, "Maulana, he heard your conversation that you had with your mom and your wife. He asked me for your name. I gave your name. He said, can you please write it?" Because he's not familiar with the name. And that's how he went onto YouTube. Maulana stopped right there, and he told his cousin, he says, "Can you see? This man, this stranger, doesn't know Allah. He doesn't know the Prophet ﷺ. He doesn't know the Hadith. He doesn't know the Sunnah. He doesn't know the madhabs. He doesn't know the Sahaba. He only knew a man who is called Suleiman Mullah. But because I spoke like I should have spoken to my beloved mother and my beautiful wife, that impressed upon him. And we make dua, inshallah, that he will listen to more of my lectures, and that inshallah one day he will become a Muslim and he will inspire the rest of his family to become a Muslim." So this is the message we have today, that the values of Islam are so important that we must realize that we are either the best of ambassadors for the deen of Islam or the worst of ambassadors for the deen of Islam. And I am convinced that all of us here and all of us viewing are, inshallah, going to be the best ambassadors for the deen of Islam. Shukran so much. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.